Everybody. It's good to have you with us tonight. I want to apologize ahead of time if I start coughing and have to mute my mic while we're going. We're dealing with our East Tennessee weather here, and it is something else, isn't it, Terry?
Let's see. Just a few days ago it was 4 degrees, and last couple of days it's been 67. So we go from winter to spring to fall, back to spring. It's just, I think they say we have 12 seasons a year. I think it is.
Yeah. So needless to say, I keep a plenty supply of cough drops and all that good stuff. So here, and Will, you get it down there too, don't you?
Well, and not that far from you to be down there.
I know it. Well, damn, yeah. If I trip just right, I'll land at your front door.
Okay. Yeah, I meant to get up and ride one of my motorcycles today, but I got busy, didn't get to do it. So I got to do it tomorrow before it gets cold again.
Yeah.
How long is it going to be before it gets 60 is kind of low as I want to go.
Yeah. So, all right. It's good to have everybody with us tonight. Those of you listening by Power Faith Radio, we thank you so much for coming this way and joining with us. We've heard from our groups, but I haven't opened that up yet, but we appreciate you being there. Those of you that are listening, I caught a cough just then. Those of you listening by either one of our Facebook groups, A Simple Walk or B'nai Noach Fellowship, we thank you so much. And maybe you're watching this recording. Please give us some questions. Give us some thumbs up. And remember, on A Simple Walk, you can share those videos with all your social media platform. And you can find us on our YouTube channel. Just type in Outreach Noah. When it comes up, go ahead and subscribe to that channel. Hit that notification bell. You'll be notified every time a new video goes up. You can email us. Send an email to outreachnoah@gmail.com or go to our Facebook page, outreachnoah.com. Terry, take it away for a minute.
You say that 3 times backwards now. Tongue twister, little spokesman's club thing I used to be in. That's the first thing we did. We opened up. We did probably about 5 or 10 minutes of different tongue twisters, kind of get you ready for the evening. It was always kind of fun. Some of the ones they hadn't done tongue twisters in a long time. The other day I thought about those, and I was trying to remember some of them. One of the hardest ones was Peter Piper picked a
Peter Piper picked a peck of peppers.
Yeah, that one. That one's a hard one.
So the question is, if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, how many peppers did Peter Piper pick? Take it, Terry.
Yeah, I don't remember. That's been a while back. All right. Good evening, everyone, and greetings. And it's good evening here in East Tennessee. So I don't know why I just get in the habit of saying that, don't we, Scotty?
Yeah.
But it's evening here in East Tennessee, but it may be morning, noon, or in the middle of the night, wherever you're at. But greetings and welcome. Thank you for coming back again. Tonight, we're going to pick up where we left off we're going to, Hashem willing, should be no problem finishing up chapter 3 here in the prophecy of the Torah of Moses. We'll finish that chapter, and Hashem willing, next week we'll try to knock out the 4th one, and then after that we're going to try to do our Q&A. A couple weeks of Q&A. Scotty's been getting a lot of stuff ready to get going on that. So if you still have some questions out there, anything we've talked about in the book or related subjects, get Scotty the questions, and so he can be working on them, and we'll have us a good Q&A session over the next few weeks. Scotty, you about ready?
I am ready. Again, we want to thank everybody who has participated in our Tzedakah time. We thank those for sending in names. And remember, you don't have to send in any kind of funds or anything. Just send us the names, and we'll get them on our Tzedakah list. We're going to always start off with our Terry and I's main teacher. That's Pesach and Shira Sherbo, his wife. They live in Sfat, Israel. We're giving tzedakah for them tonight. We're also giving tzedakah for William Lyons tonight, and also Wendy Shepard. She's still on our tzedakah list. And Clifford Hool. We're giving tzedakah for Clifford Hool tonight. We want you to write his name down if you would. He's they're taking him off his cancer medication and putting him on hospice this week, so we want to remember them, the Hool family. And also we have Nadine Akins on our tzedakah list today. And we also have the Hurst family. We're giving tzedakah for the Hurst family tonight. And also for, I still haven't got Larry Beck's wife's name, so we're doing Mr. and Mrs. Larry Beck. Is that Mr. and Mrs. Beck? That's how we're going to say that.
Mr. Beck.
So yeah, we're giving tzedakah for them tonight. Also, we still have Christina Seaton Thompson on our tzedakah list. Also, Warwick Marshall. We always have him on our tzedakah list. He's and Amuela. Somebody always sends in. This is your dollar, Amuela, going into the tzedakah box tonight. And they also include Veronica Port in on that, and we're not sure where she's at. I think she's still down in Louisiana somewhere, isn't she?
I think so.
Yeah, I seen the last pictures down in Louisiana. And then also Thomas Schaus. We're giving tzedakah for Thomas Schaus tonight. Let's see if I can get that in there. Also, Ronald, you sent me a text this week that you're going to you finally got your hospital appointment. You want to tell us how that's going?
Well, I've got the appointment on the 19th, and from there, I think we'll be going through the procedure and what they plan on doing, and hopefully get a date for the operation.
Okay. Well, you're on our tzedakah list, continue to be. And then we're giving Thanksgiving tzedakah still for Mary Parsons. And I'm not going to ask you if she was shoveling snow because I know you didn't have snow this past week. So we're giving thank you tzedakah for Mary Parsons. And then on our blessed memory list this week is Rodney Arnett. So would you help us pray tonight? Hear our voice, Adonai, our God, Father of mercy. Have compassion on us and accept our prayers with compassion and favor. For you are a God who hears prayers and supplications. Our King, do not send us away empty-handed. Favor us, answer us, and listen to our prayers. Amen. All right, Terry, are you about ready to get started? And I will put you on speaker view.
Anything left over from last week we need to discuss anything before we get into it?
I believe you covered that pretty good. Now, Ronald's got his hand up. Ronald, you got your...
Yeah, I was just going to say, Veronica put up a post looking for people to meet up with in Waco. So she sounds like she's heading for Texas.
Yeah, sounds like she's heading for Texas. Okay. And there come Chrissy.
Chrissy? Hello, Chrissy.
Yep. So,
Warwick, I just noticed. Is that you on the bike? You're muted. I guess so.
Okay, I'm going to put you on speaker view.
All righty.
Terry, and let you get started.
We're going to pick back up on at the bottom of the page 56 is where we left off a couple of weeks ago. It says, this foundational principle is alluded to in the communication to Moses at the burning bush on Mount Sinai. When Moses received his mission from God at the very outset, God instructed Moses, this is your sign to the Israelites that I have sent you. When you take the people out of Egypt, that will not be the sign. Rather, the sign will be that you, Moses, will serve God on this mountain. God alluded to him that the miracles of the Exodus from Egypt were intended only as a temporary measure. After they would leave their slavery in Egypt, all the Israelites would stand before Mount Sinai, and their witnessing of Moses being called to serve God upon the mountain would remove any doubt that they had about him to that point. So we see the miracle is that Moses, or not the miracle, but the sign would be that Moses would be called upon the mountain to serve the Creator. says, based on all of this, the public revelation at Mount Sinai is the only indisputable criterion for believing in and accepting Moses' prophecy and his transmission of God's teachings. As God said to him, I will come to you in a thick cloud so that the people will hear when I speak with you and will believe in you forever. And that's in Exodus 19:9. And we've covered that before. Thus, the faith in God's appointment of Moses is undeniable for as long as the Jewish people and their Torah exist, which is forever. And this faith is not based on any miracle that Moses performed. It's based on the nation heard God speaking to Moses. And then Moses would turn and deliver the message to Israel. It says, such a unique testimony to a group of millions of people is impossible to refute because each overlapping generation serves as the witnesses to the next generation. Before his death, Moses wrote these events in the first Torah scroll, which God dictated to him, and he made identical copies of all the scrolls for each of the 12 tribes who had personally witnessed and verified the very events which are written there. Thus it is written that the Torah that Moses commanded us is the heritage of the congregation of Jacob. And he wrote 13 scrolls, one for each of the tribes, and there's one that's in the Ark of the Covenant that he placed there. There's all handwritten scrolls, and all the scrolls today, the ones that's been handwritten since then. But it says the Torah of Moses commanded us as the heritage of the congregation of Jacob. I wanted to cover a little bit of that before we went on. This is in Deuteronomy 33, verse 4. Rabbi Hirsch in verse 4 says the Torah that Moses commanded us, this is the inheritance or the heritage of the community of Yaakov, of Jacob. Rabbi Hirsch, in his teachings on this passage, says this is the national credo, which is to be the heritage of Israel from generation to generation. This Torah is the real heritage, not the land and its bounty, but the Torah is the national heritage of Israel. God entrusted his Torah as a heritage, not to individuals, but to the community as a whole, because the community lives forever and only the community has the resources for every objective. So we see that the Torah belongs to Israel. It doesn't belong to the nations. We are mentioned in there, but our duties that are in there, which came from Adam, was reaffirmed by Moses when he wrote all this down in the Torah. It's all reaffirmed in there, that everything that went from Adam to Noah and to Abraham and then to Moses. But the Torah belongs to Israel. It's their heritage. It's not the nations, even though the nations had taken it and translated it into their languages and made a big mess out of it in a lot of the translations from the original Hebrew. And they've tied it to their writings and their systems of beliefs, but it never belonged to them. It's not an Old Testament. That the Old and New Testament, like I've explained before, it's in history. It's there. You can go look it up. The Catholic Church is the ones who coined those two terms, Old and New Testament. Goes all the way back to Marcion, Bishop Marcion. Do some research on him, and you'll see that was actually in the first some of the first works when they started putting together everything in the Catholic Church. And then also in Psalms 147. I didn't plan on reading that. think it's Psalms 147. Psalms 147, verse 19. He says, he proclaims his word to Yaakov. Again, the Torah is to the congregation of Jacob. He proclaims his word to Yaakov and his statutes and his judgments to Israel, and he has not done so with any other nation. His judgments they have not known. We have not known the Torah that God gave Israel through Moses. We may read it in an English version or whatever language you have, but we did not receive it, and we did not receive its understandings. And so there's a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of passages out there that's actually become part of a lot of Western society that has absolutely, it's not even close to its original meaning when you go back to the Hebrew. So this is the reason why in the Torah and in the prophets, it says that the nations will turn to Israel and to the Jewish people. Actually, in Zechariah 8:23, when it says 10 men of the nations will grab a hold of the garment of the Jew, and it says in Hebrew Yehud, the Yehudim, they will teach us. It says, take us with you, because we know that God is with you. And so I wanted to bring this point out, that we are guests when it comes to studying the Torah. We are the guests. That is why we go to the rabbis, why we go to the sages of Israel to understand, because it's not our heritage. It's not our duty to have upheld it. We weren't given its writings nor its understandings from Mount Sinai. And so we are guests, and that's why we need to be careful as we talk about it, explain it. I don't ever interpret it myself. What I teach is I teach from the sages, from what I've been taught by my teachers, because we actually, any interpretation that the non-Jewish people have is not even valid, because it's not our property. And so that's why we have to be careful, because this is the word of God given to Israel as he gave it to Moses on Mount Sinai. And like I said, there was over 2 million people plus children that was there in that day when all of that happened. As a matter of fact, even in the Hebrew, I have to bring that out sometime. And it says it in the Hebrew, they actually saw the words. They saw the words as God spoke those first few commandments of the 10. It's really interesting in what actually happened there on the mount that day. Scotty, you got anything before we go on? He's busy eating cough drops. I don't blame him. All righty. Therefore, if a supposed prophet arises and attempts to dispute or nullify anything in the prophecy of the Torah of Moses, even if he performs great miracles in the support of his claim, he should not be believed or heeded. We should know with certainty that his message is false, and that he performed his alleged miracles through either magic or sorcery or deception. This conclusion is definite because the prophecy of Moses was established as true for all times, based on the open revelation of God in his appointment of Moses, which occurred publicly at Mount Sinai. In accordance with this, the Torah states about a false prophet, even if a sign or a wonder comes about, which he spoke to you, saying, let us follow gods of others that you did not know, and we shall worship them. Do not hearken unto the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for the Lord your God is testing you. The false prophet is coming. The false prophet is coming with signs and wonders to deny that the Jewish people know what the Jewish people know to be true. For their entire populations saw it with their own eyes, heard it with their own ears, and also verified that it was correctly recorded in the Torah and passed down through all generations. But if the message of the supposed prophet is consistent with the Torah of Moses and appears to perform a miracle, that a person should be accepted as a prophet from the point on the base on God's commandment through Moses, as explained at the end of the previous chapter in Deuteronomy 18:15-22. A prophet from your midst, from your brethren like me, shall Lord your God establish for you. To him shall you hearken. If the prophet will speak in the name of God, and that thing will not occur and not come about, and this is the word of God has not spoken. With willfulness has the prophet spoken it, you should not fear him. That is the basis upon which we must accept the message that he gives, instead of accepting it based on signs and wonders that he performs. Once the person passes this test and he fulfills the characteristics of a prophet, we are not to continue testing him every time he gives a new instruction, or when he gives instructions to another group of people in another place. Rather, everyone is obligated to follow the instructions which he gives from then on, as long as he continues to display the characteristics of a prophet, although it isn't known whether the additional wonders he performs, if any, are in fact divine miracles. In regards to one who prophesies, and it is unknown to the people if he is a true prophet, the same directives in the Torah apply, as explained by Maimonides. Just as the Jewish courts are commanded to make a judgment based on testimony of two witnesses, even if it isn't known if they are true or false, similarly is commandment to heed a prophet, even though we do not know if the miracle is true or done by magic. The limitations of what can be a true prophecy, and the types of statements that are sure to be false prophecies are explained more in detail in the next chapter. Scotty, we got anything there? All quiet on the Western Front?
Yes, all quiet. I think they're all just listening.
Okay. Anyhow, two things as this chapter brings out is that the prophecy of Moses, which is the Torah, is forever. It's forever, and it cannot be changed. Once the Creator gave it to him, it cannot be changed. He gave the instructions within it that not one word should be be changed. Can't add to it or take it away. And that, but he, the Creator, spoke to Moses in front of all the people. This solidified. He says they will believe in you forever because of this, and this has been passed down through each generation. And then that this prophecy of Moses, this Torah of Moses, is the heritage of Israel, the congregation of Jacob, not to any individual, not to one small group within Israel. It's given to the whole congregation, because as it is stated, it's the congregation that lives on forever. And they pass down the Torah from generation to generation. As new technologies arrive, new things happen, they judge everything according to the Torah to make sure that they stay applicable to its instructions. If everyone's ready, I'll just go ahead and go on over to chapter 4. Get a head start on that. Hold on. I didn't have my... Glad I just saw that. How is a prophet different from a teacher? That's an interesting question, Bob. Well, a prophet is one who, and understand, a lot of people see a prophet as someone who comes and foretells the future and stuff like that. And that's not really the deal. The prophecy is the word of God that's coming. Like most of the prophets, when you read them, they are instructing Israel to either stay or return back to the Torah. You can go to like I said, Judges. It's mentioned in there several times when they strayed, God would send them into captivity, and then they would cry out, and then he would raise up a Mashiach, and he would send them out and go get them, and they'd come back and bring them back to the Torah. When you read Isaiah and Jeremiah, a lot of these has to deal with Israel's either observance of the Torah or the lack of it. And it's generally discussing that. There is some, I guess, what you would call prophecy of like the future and stuff like that that's in there. But as the rabbis teach, everything that is a positive, quote, prophecy, something that's going to happen, like the nations will turn to Israel, that's a positive prophecy that you see in multiple places. That's positive. So that means it will come about. Any negative prophecy, which generally, like if something about being, devastation, Jonah, like overturning the city, negative prophecies can be turned over and turned around and not come true, because when man repents and return back to God, he takes back the negative. And so, but a teacher is one who just learns and teaches, just like myself. I learn from my teachers and I teach. I'm not a prophet. A prophet is also one who will receive messages from God through various avenues, like we studied here a couple of weeks ago. Some of them will go into a trance, some of it's a dream. Moses is the only one who actually stood and heard the voice of God directly, like a man speaking to another man. But a lot of it is in dreams and trances that will overcome them, and because they have to be kind of like taken out of their physical realm to be able to receive such a word from God. And where a teacher doesn't get that, a teacher maybe get inspired. He might have an inspiration, but they don't receive any direct, people run around saying, God spoke to me. No, he speaks to me all the time when I read the Torah. But I'm not qualified to be at that level. Don't know if I want to. One time I actually, and I was stupid and I prayed about that kind of stuff years ago when I was a young man. And someone a whole lot wiser than me asked me, said, "Are you willing to go through what that prophet went through to get that kind of message?" I'm like, no. I said, all right, you're not a prophet. And so, but I was a young man. I was in my late 20s when I thought I'd, super spiritual there, So, but Bob, did I answer your question on that? We're a teacher, more or less. A teacher, like, I think it's in the Ethics of the Fathers where it says you, how's it go? Where you learn to teach. See, you learn to teach, and then you teach to learn. A teacher is a student. I can't remember the exact saying from the Ethics of the Fathers, but there's an actually statement on that where you study and to learn. Oh, you learn to observe, and to also you learn to teach, but then you teach also to learn. Teachers should always learn from their students. So we got the sages have a whole teaching on just that, on sayings on being a student and a teacher. Where did Scotty go? Oh, there he is. He was up over here now. We got anything there, Scotty? Having to wet my whistle now.
No, I'm working on something with somebody talking, and I'm going to bring it up. I know you're fixing to get to it, so
okay,
I'm going to bring it up here in a minute.
I'm going to go ahead and start chapter 4 because it'd be nice. We can get on into our Q&A sessions because we've all been looking forward to that. And this has been an interesting study on the prophecy of the Torah and the prophecy of Moses. And it's interesting, I guess put the way Bob puts it in what we're reading, it's interesting he puts this stuff right here in the book at this point, at this place in time in the organization, how Rabbi Weiner organized the layout of this book. Chapter 4, on page 59, the eternity of the Torah of Moses. It is clear and explicit in the Torah itself, the 5 books of Moses, that it is God's commandment that remains in its original form forever, without change, addition, or diminishment. As it is stated, all of these matters which I command you, you shall be careful to perform them. You may not add to it or diminish from it. As it is also stated, what is revealed is for us and our children forever, to carry out all the words of this Torah. That's in Deuteronomy 29:28. And that's speaking to Israel there as well. This teaches that we are commanded to fulfill all the Torah's directives forever, to the full extent that we are able to do so. That's what I love about the sages. So many people say, well, you can't do. Well, one, we don't have to keep all the directives that was given to Israel. We have our certain ones, our 7 categorical, areas that was given to us from Adam to Noah and reaffirmed by Moses and given to Israel to teach us. But it says that we are commanded to fulfill them to the full extent that we are capable to do so. That means some people may have some physical difficulties. There are things now, not really within our 7, especially like within the 613 for Israel. There are some people who have mental or, well, not even, let me say, physical defects that can't observe certain aspects of, let's say men, there are certain commandments they would not be able to fulfill, because of their physical ability. And it's not a sin for them at that. Even with us, even our 7, someone that is has a mental handicap, a brain injury, or for some reason they have a mental handicap, they are not held liable for certain of their actions based upon that handicap because they weren't able to do it. And so even our laws, our national laws, even take in that account, a person's age and a person's mental state, whether they are guilty of violating some crimes because they may not have been able to withhold themselves from the state that they were in. That's not making an excuse. This is people with real issues that even our Torah teacher says that we are commanded to fulfill according to the full extent of what we are capable, able to do. It is also said, it is an everlasting statute for all your generations. This is to Israel. And it is not in the heavens. This teaches us that the prophet can no longer truthfully claim that he has been told by God to add a new permanent precept as being commanded by God. There will never be a new commandment come down out of heaven to add to the 613 or the 7. Therefore, if a person will arise, whether Jew or Gentile, and perform a sign or wonder and say that God sent him to do any of the following, he is a false prophet. Add a divine commandment. Withdraw a divine commandment. Explain a divine commandment in a matter that differs from the tradition received from Moses. Declare that the divine commandment or the Torah are not forever, but rather were given for a limited time. And I'm going to, since this is not the Torah, I'm going to add one that some people know, or that the Torah was weak. That actually diminishes it. That would follow underneath diminishing the Torah, to say that it was weak. A person who calls for any of these things is denying the prophecy of Moses because he dares to make a statement in God's name that God never made. That that scares me. I learned that a long time ago, even before I was even on this path. I had come across the passage about, you know, warning the prophet who speaks in the name of God, something that he didn't say. I mean, I don't know, I was probably 18, 19 years old, and that scared the living daylights out of me, even back then. God, blessed be his name, commanded Moses that his Torah and his commandments are for us and our children forever. And God is not like a man that he will speak falsely. If so, what is meant by the Torah statement, I will establish a prophet for them from among their brethren, like Moses, and I will place my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them everything I command him. That is in Deuteronomy 18:18. A true prophet is not being sent by God to establish a new or different faith, but rather to instruct the people to fulfill their existing commandments in the Torah of Moses and to warn against transgressing them. Thus, it was declared in the last book of the prophets, remember the Torah of Moses, my servant. That's in Malachi 3:22 or Malachi 3:22. It may be that the prophet will be sent by God to instruct certain people to do something which is in that situation is neither commanded nor forbidden by the Torah. For example, go to such and such a place. Do not go there. Go out to war. Do not go out to war. Build up a wall. Remove this wall. If this has been established as a prophet, it is obligatory to follow his instruction. Also, if someone who has proven himself to be a prophet instructs us to violate a limited amount of time, one or more of the Torah's commandments, whether it be light or severe in nature, it is obligatory to follow his instructions, with one exception as explained below. The sages of the early generations taught as part of the oral tradition, if a prophet tells you to only temporarily violate a precept of the Torah, as Elijah did at Mount Carmel, listen to him with regard to all things except the worship of false gods. In the example, the Tanakh relates Elijah at one time offered a sacrifice on Mount Carmel, which was outside and far away from the holy temple. Even though the temple was already permanently designated as the only place for a Jew to offer a sacrifice, the Torah specifies that a Jew who violates the commandment not to offer a sacrifice outside the temple courtyard is liable to be cut off from the midst of his people. That means that's a very severe thing to be cut off. I won't get into that tonight, but my first teacher explained the depth of that. It's very serious. But Elijah was already established as a true prophet, so it was obligatory to heed him, since it was clearly a temporary, unique situation. The commandment, a prophet from your midst, to him you shall hearken, applies in that type of situation as well. If they would have asked Elijah, the Torah commands, beware yourself, lest you bring up your burnt offering in any place that you see. How can we violate this? He would have told them, the Torah law is indeed that a Jew who offers a sacrifice outside the temple premises is liable for his soul to be punished with the karet. However, that means his soul is cut off. His soul is cut off from Israel. There's a few of the sins of the Torah that a Jew can, if he does, can remove not only him physically, but also spiritually. His soul can be removed from the nation of Israel. And this was one of them. It says, however, The present temporary situation is an exception. I am offering a sacrifice here today by God's instruction, which I received as a prophecy in order to disprove the false prophets of the idol Baal. See, this was a situation because there was Jewish people who were also involved within this false idol worship of Baal. And this was Elijah was doing this to disprove this false god to his people. It had a purpose and a reason behind it. And it was only temporary and was allowed to be done one time. If, however, anyone claims to prophesy that a Torah commandment has been nullified forever, he is a false prophet. For the Torah has told us it is for us and our children forever to carry out all the words of the Torah. The same applies if someone prophesies that the Torah law, which is transmitted as an oral tradition from Moses at Mount Sinai, is now permanently nullified. In both cases, he is a false prophet and is liable for capital sin. I'm going to go ahead and finish this chapter, Scotty. Then we'll come to your questions. The same applies if he states with regard to one of the Torah's precepts that God commanded him to render a different judgment, or God commanded him about the Torah law regarding a particular issue, or that it is to follow a certain opinion. In these cases, too, he is a false prophet. Even if he performs a wonder, or he is denying that Torah was already given from heaven by God to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, and from that point on, it is not in the heavens. If, however, a presumed prophet states that for a limited time we should follow a particular course of behavior, he should be listened to with regards to all things, including all the commandments, except for one. Any prophet who gives instruction or permission to worship any idol should not be heeded, even if he says it's for a limited time, even if he performs great wonders and miracles when he says that God commanded that the others worship an idol, be it for one day or less. It is known that he has spoken perversely against God. Concerning this command in the Torah, if the sign or wonder comes about, of which he spoke to you, saying, let us follow gods of others that you did not know, and we shall worship them, do not hearken to the words of this prophet, for he has spoken perversion against the Lord your God. About such a case, the Torah teaches that the so-called prophet is denying the truth of the prophecy of Moses. Therefore, we may definitely conclude that he is a false prophet, and in any apparent miracle he did in support of this false instruction was performed by sorcery or magic or other deceptions. Go ahead, Scotty.
Takes me a couple more buttons to get over to you here. Will asked a minute ago, you was talking about a man not having to obey commandments for Jews. Can you clarify that? Can you give an example?
Clarify the question.
Will just asked the question, said, can Terry give example of a man not having to obey commandments for Jews?
Are you talking about the nations not having to obey the Jewish commandments?
I think. Go ahead, Will. State your question there.
No, you were saying there were either some circumstances or something like that the Jew, due to a Jewish man, particularly due to some disability, would not have to obey a commandment. I just wonder what you were referring to on that.
There are examples of Jewish men who would have disabilities. That, let's say, like they have the commandment of tefillin, and he has a physical condition to where he is not able to actually fulfill that commandment as according to its laws and statutes and how to do it. He is exempt from that. A Jew that is an example, this one I know of, was told by a rabbi on, there was a Jewish man who had an illness, and he was required to take a certain kind of medication. And this is a true thing, because I heard the rabbi tell this with my own ears. There was a Jewish man in a congregation. He was an older man, and in his older years, he developed an illness which required a certain kind of medication that he had to take, and he had to take it with food every day, that it would put his life in danger if he didn't. And the man had observed since a child the day of Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year, where they fast for 25 hours. And he had come to the synagogue, and the rabbi asked him, "What are you doing here?" And he says, "I'm observing Yom Kippur as I'm commanded." But he said, "You have to take your medications, and you have to eat with that medication," because he wasn't able to just take it without food. He had to take it with food and water. And he said, "No, I'm fasting." He says, "No, this is a doctor's order. Your life is extant, can be in danger of this." And because of that, he literally was exempt from observing Yom Kippur without committing a sin. In situations like that, when it becomes life and death, the Torah is laid aside for the sake of life. And in this situation, because of his health, he could not observe the commandments of Yom Kippur. And he was exempt from that because of his health condition, and it wasn't a sin upon him because of that.
Good point. Good point. Fred's got his.
And that's why the sages says, according to your ability, and that's even the Jewish people, not just the people of the nations. It's according to your ability to be able to observe. And if something happens to you physically or mentally, and you're not able to perform your duties, then you're relinquished from those duties without fault. Go ahead, Scotty.
Fred's got his hand up. Fred, go ahead.
Well, I think he just said everything I was going to say.
Okay.
Way to go, Terry. So, but I was, you know why? Like you said, it's all circumstances, circumstantial. If something happens, and for example, if you're on a plane, it gets caught and you can't get out of there, and it's Shabbat, and things are going on. So, in certain circumstances, what are you going to do?
Well,
so even Rabbi Singer said he was calling. That's why I was using that reference, because he was coming on a plane. It was delayed. It was late, and there's a problem. And has it. So a Jew has to be really an Orthodox Jew in a circumstance, even if it's life and death is one thing, but what if you have a circumstance where you decide, well, and what did he do? He ended up getting a hotel with his daughter. Blah blah blah. They didn't turn on the lights. They even go to the shop, so they made a difficult situation somewhat better, but circumstances happen.
Well, there's there's even other examples of I believe it was the Baal Shem Tov, who was a great rabbi. I believe it was the Baal Shem Tov. He was seen on, I believe it was on the day of Yom Kippur. He had come in and done his morning prayers for the morning of Yom Kippur, and he laid down his talit and he left. And some of the men followed him to see where he went. And he went to this elderly lady's house. It was in the middle of winter, and we're talking about, this is in the Ukraine, in that area where the winters can get really dangerously cold. And he was seen on Yom Kippur chopping firewood and building a fire for this lady. And he did that as a mitzvah, as a deed for her on the holy day, because if not, she would have froze to death. So that was a situation where he went and saved a life on the high holy day and laid aside. Now, I believe he fasted, but he went and worked. He chopped wood and he built the fire and things like that. But the Creator, a lot of us that are foreigners of the Torah and its lifestyle, we have been raised with these Greek Roman mythological ideas of God. God is not a tyrannical drill sergeant up there sticking his big sword out. You do this or I'm gonna smite you. That's not what it's all about. That's not the punishments and rewards, which we'll get into studying that. That's a really good section. It's just, that's a natural. Punishments and rewards is a natural aspect of life. I mean, anyone's ever raised a child, especially a teenager, can understand that, life deals us those, you do this, you're rewarded. And if you don't, well, there's going to be a circumstance, and it's not God being tyrannical and being like a drill sergeant, just standing there with his nose in your face, shouting at you, do this or else. God never does that, and it takes a long time to get that Western mythological, view of God out of our minds.
Yeah, I think I've heard a lot of rabbis mention a lot about this, that there's always a little bit of leniency on certain circumstances. What if, like I said, if we go back in time and read the Torah, where it says that when an ox falls into a hole on a Sabbath and it's your neighbor's ox or whatever, but that's his livelihood. If you don't get it out of there, that could be his life, his income. It can be a whole lot of things. So,
right.
But what the theme is once you get the situation rectified, you go back.
Yeah, you go back.
As soon as it's rectified, get back focused on whether it's the Sabbath or something you're supposed to be doing, blah, blah, blah.
Human life is such a gift from God that even in his commandments, now his strictest commandments goes toward the Jews, because that's, they have a duty as the priesthood to live as the priest before us. But even with that, it's not as what us outsiders we see as that is very, very strict and non-bending. It's amazing when you study with some of these guys, like my first rabbi, Pesach now, mid to late 70s, who's lived a life of it, and and it's just amazing to hear, their relationship with God within what is a stricter way of life than what it is for us. The
What I was having a problem with, though, is not the logic that you're saying, is the aspect of what commandment somebody's physical problem would not be modified or accommodation for. I mean, that's what I was thinking, is the physical disability part, is that you could physically able to do it, or somebody couldn't help you do it.
Well, if you didn't have an arm, you couldn't lay tefillin.
But somebody else could put it on you.
If you don't have an arm, where's it going?
It's going to go over your shoulders.
No, it has to be wrapped. It has to be done.
Oh, you're talking about the box wrapped on your arm or your head.
Yeah, the tefillin.
Okay. Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, if he doesn't have an arm, if he lost his arm in an accident,
If you don't do it on the arm as well as on the head, it doesn't count.
The mitzvah has a certain laws that goes with it. Now you can like if you have one arm, I believe you are supposed to, it's been a while since I studied those laws. You can use your right arm, but the tefillin generally goes on your left arm because it's closest to your heart. It has
Just
certain
being on
things.
your forehead is not
and
sufficient.
right.
It wouldn't
And
count. Okay. I can see
and
that.
plus when you're wrapping it around your hand, that wrap has multiple meanings. One of the rounds is a wedding band, and the prayer of my beloved is my beloved, or whatever. Ladodi is part of that. But when that is finished on the hand, that wrap actually spells in Hebrew the name of God Shaddai. And so you're writing in your name. There's so much into feeling that is so meaningful for the men that it's a blessing. That's why the Chabad really goes around and helps the non-affiliated Jews. If they've never put on tefillin, they'll help them do it to observe the commandment, because there's just a blessing and a meaning there. But they're autistic. There are a child or a man who is autistic is exempt from certain commandments because he's mentally not able to do that. God's not tyrannical to where, like, well, it sucks to be you were born like that, but I'm going to demand you be like, do this anyhow. God's not like that.
Yeah, I've done it, but it wasn't ever explained as much detail as what you were saying. It's like, somebody help me rap, and then there
Right.
was
I mean, I
say,
used to
but
practice
they
it.
didn't go the they didn't give all that explanation to what was all involved.
Well, yeah, there's I used to have a book on it that I had studied, because I used to have a set when I was practicing and studying with my rabbi, and he would help me. And there's so much in there, because there's 4 scrolls. It's in the head tefillin, which is mounted between your eyes, and there's 3. I think there's 3 scrolls. It's in the arm. It's tilted toward the heart, and there's so much depth that's there, and this is a command for the Jewish people, or the Jewish men. And so in certain physical situations, they're not able to observe the commandment because of that. They're not held. It's not a sin for them. And so it just happened. It's and a person that's in a situation like that should go to his rabbi and talk with them, and then follow the rabbi's instructions, just like the rabbi instructed that guy on Yom Kippur. Go take your medicine, eat your food. So go ahead, Scotty.
There's a similar circumstance when I was in the military, that if you couldn't do certain things, for example, you're supposed to always salute with your right hand. But like you talk about, if you don't have an arm, you're not going to be in the military. But if you break your right arm and you can't use it, then you're authorized to use your left. But it's, it all has to do with the circumstance. But there's no wrong, and that's a leniency. That's what I'm talking about. Leniency when circumstances beyond your control, if you can't control whatever it is,
Right.
that's the leniency.
And
that's why they have written in the code of conduct for those leniencies. That way, common sense of the circumstances beyond your control that you cannot do, then you have to. Really, we read the Torah, we see there in the instructions given to Israel, those leniencies. If someone does this can happen, or that can happen, or you got to pay this much, blah, blah, blah. But it's like any court of law, it all depends on the circumstance.
right.
Why
And
it caused the problem in the first place.
yeah, and the sages says, according to your ability. And that's, it's a wonderful aspect of Torah observance, even among the Jewish people. That's according to their ability, and it's the same with us. Go ahead, Scotty.
That's one of the things that the question was going towards, and so you're covering this according to one's ability.
Right.
And, this is one of the things that I myself, and I'm going to be, I'm going to watch my words when I ask this question. This is one of the things that really hurts. No, this is one of the things that religion always pushes. Is it don't matter what your ability, you have to do what we tell you to do. I'm give it an instance. Tithe. Tithe is one of the biggest things that is abused in Western religions, and but even that is according to your ability, correct?
Well,
And in a certain,
how do you just like open up can of worms?
well, I'm just I've not opened this up. If you want to blame somebody, don't blame
no,
Bob.
no, no,
Let's
no. I'm
blame
not.
this other
I'm
Bob.
not blaming. I'm not blaming
This other
any.
Bob is talking about this.
I'm not blaming anyone or anything like that. It's the subject. Again, it's one of those, like I said earlier, it's one of those subjects that Western religions opened up a book and they read it, and it's interesting that they took that as one of the big ones that everybody's got to do, but there's other ones that they don't do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go there, but just like, we were talking the other night, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And even movie stars who are atheists they use that stuff in Hollywood and stuff like that. It's misunderstood. Everybody thinks, well, you poke my eye out, I'm going to gouge your eye. You hit me in the mouth, knock my tooth, I'm going to get your tooth. That is not what it's talking about, folks. It's a matter of financial equality. It's tit for tat. It's equal balances. And in a situation where, like, in court of Jewish law, if two men got in a fight and he caused a man to lose his arm, and if he was right-handed and that was his dominant arm, and it cost him his living, then the court had to rule an equal balance on what it cost that man for losing that. It's not that, oh, well, you're going to take this other one. It's about financial balances, balances. And Scotty, you and tithing, you bring that up.
Well, I'm
tithing is abused because it's not commanded into the nations. A Jew doesn't even tithe outside of the land of Israel. They don't even tithe today because they're the Levitical priesthood, and the Kohanim is not set up because that's who the tithe goes to. They observe certain amounts in practice, but tithing is not even given to the nations. It was given to Israel, and it's the produce of the land of Israel that is tithed. Now, I'm not saying that there's not principles there that we can be learned, but to demand it is to demand something that we are not even commanded.
Now, this is one of the things that I'm really passionate.
Now, I know I'm rocking a lot of people's boats, and we can talk about that in question and answer stuff later. But
yeah. Well, this is one of the things that I'm passionate about. It's not so much when I give, I don't give as a tithe, although I do have a portion of my money
right
that I give. And I give it to the hungry. I give it to the naked. I give it, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And so what is the difference between that and what we do? The tithe and what we do? Can just I know we've been in an hour.
Explain what you mean.
So let's take, for instance, what I do. I have a portion of my funds that I give to tzedakah. But that's not all of my tzedakah. I have a portion of my funds that I give to the charity position of tzedakah. And I look for, I don't wait till they come to me. I look for opportunities to give in this aspect.
Right.
So can you cover that just for a minute? What is that all about?
That's the same with us. We have certain areas that we donate every month, a certain amount. But one of our big ways that my wife and I give is because my wife in the past, a long time ago, and my daughters, and my eldest daughter still is in since high school, and she's 30 years old. She's a server. She's actually being trained to be the manager of this establishment where she's been at for a while. And we give in tips. because we know that those people are making $2 an hour. Most people don't know that. Most servers make here in the United States, they make $2.50 an hour. The bulk of their income comes off their tips. So we always tip well. I tip when I go get my hair cut, you know. And because those, most of the people that I go and get my hair cut, they're generally, a lot of them are single moms or older ladies that's out needing to help make money to pay the bills. So I always give tips when, to where I go get my hair cut. That's just ways we give. But a tithe is not a tithe. The 10% is not commanded to us. Now that's a good number to start with if you wanted to take money and give to charity, because see, we do the opposite of theft. We want to be giving, but it's not a commandment. It's not a commandment to give. What's interesting in what I read last week with Sodom, where Ezekiel says, this is the sin of your sister Sodom. They were, wealthy and all that, but they did not lift the hand of the poor or the needy. The sages in the commentary to that passage says this is very interesting, because charity is not a commandment to the Gentiles, but yet God judged the city based on charity. That's how important. And I don't like the word charity. I like the word tzedakah because we use that. That's Hebrew. Charity generally, from our neck of the woods, represents you taking something of yourself from yourself and helping someone else out. Where tzedakah is you're taking that which is God's and doing right with it. Tzedakah means righteousness or righteous. So you're doing right with it. You're helping out the poor or the needy in any situation. But the tithing as a religious system among the nations has been abused, and it's robbed a lot of people, and some people, they do it, and they do it from their heart, and God bless them. But we are called to take care of the poor and the needy, and not the institutions. Now, should certain institutions receive funds for what they do? Yes. My rabbi, or Scotty and I's rabbi, and is told us, he says, if someone gives you, because what you're doing, you're spending your time and your money, you're buying your books, you're studying, there's nothing wrong to receive on that end. Scotty and I don't ask. That's just part of who we are. But I like how the synagogues do it. The synagogues, you pay a due. You pay a due to be a member. And then on high holy days, you buy tickets to do that. And that helps pay for the expenses of the buildings.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Not all the synagogues make you buy tickets, but we don't.
Not all of them. No, just some do.
We don't use the word tithe. We use the word dues for membership, and there are certain donations you make for different things. And I was just thinking that tithe was a Christian word, but are you saying tithe is just, it's
No,
not
tithe
because it was only to be done in Israel?
In the Hebrew, it's translated as tithe in English, but in Hebrew, I think the word starts with the im. And I can't remember how to pronounce it. There's a whole teaching on the laws. Yes, tithing was set up in Israel based on the produce of Israel. My first rabbi, he today, because there is not a Levitical priesthood, the righteous farmers, they still tithe the produce of their flocks and their fields. And what they do is they give it to the poor of the land, and to what we would call the food bank systems that takes care of the poor and the needy. And they get a sticker for that goes on the rest of their produce. It's interesting. I didn't know this. My rabbi told me, he says, when he goes to buy fruits and vegetables at a market, like in New York, he lived in Brooklyn. He says, if it had, from Israel, he looked for a specific sticker stated that this this farm or whatever you call it tithe their produce to the poor. He said, without that sticker, he said, I don't buy it if it's from Israel. If it's from another country, I'll buy it. It doesn't matter. But he says, I won't buy produce from Israel that hasn't been tithed to the poor. He said, the righteous farmers do that. And
Well,
so I
there's
thought that was
leavings
interesting.
too, which I think is not as sure if it's exactly the leftovers, it's just certain parts that's not cropped, that's just left for the.
Yeah, the farmers still do all of that in Israel. They do that in Israel. Like I said, there's principles we can learn from here to help out and to do things like that. David would take 20%. He wouldn't take 10. He would take 20%, and he set it aside. He had a thing in a Jewish community. People are always coming by, knocking on the door, raising money, because it's very expensive to marry off a daughter. Very expensive. And so people are always coming and just raising up. It doesn't matter if it's a nickel, or a dime, but he had money set aside at the house in case he got that knock. Then he always kept change in his pockets from that money that he took out of his check every week, just in case, a beggar come up or somebody in a genuine need, or if he come across a tzedakah box or something, he always made sure he had something to give, even if it's a penny or a nickel. The amount's doesn't matter. It's the mentality and what you're doing. And it's what he was teaching me about tithing. And he says, we don't really tithe, but we make sure that we take enough out to take care of the needs of those who are in need.
So I want to pull this back into where I brought in the tithe, but and the tzedakah and dropped into charity. But what if somebody doesn't have that ability to give to charity? What if they don't have that ability? And so that was where we was covering to the best of our ability.
In Torah law, even the poorest person that's receiving something, a beggar, should give. Even if it's just, like I said, the smallest amount, of coin, that you should give some form of tzedakah, even the poorest. That is according to your ability. Now, if it's going to take away from you being able to eat and take care of yourself, you're not supposed to. The first person you give to is yourself, to make sure that you have adequate food and clothing and shelter for yourself and your family. Then it works out from there. But if you're in a hardship case and somebody saying you need to give, and it's going to hurt you or your family, then no, you don't have to give. It's not a sin.
Okay.
And again, the sin on charity is actually the attitude, because Sodom had laws against charity, and so I cringe when I see certain laws being passed in cities about, the homeless and things like that, because I'm like, oh, that's getting too close to what Sodom and them went through. But you should always take care of yourself, your family first. Food, clothing, shelter, the necessity of life needs to be taken care of. Then if that is taken care of, then you go out from there. Then you go out to your other family, your relatives, if they are in need, your children, if they're grown, if they're in a hardship, you can give to them. And then all that, then you move into your community. Your community, and all of our communities have poor people and have the homeless, and we have food banks we can help support and give, and these thrift stores that the honest thrift stores that take up, clothing and things like that for people. You can give to that. We give a lot of clothes and things like that to places like that as we're changing things out. And if they're in still good shape, we'll donate them to places that take care of clothes for the needy. Then you work your way out. But if you're giving over here to another country and that's all you're doing and all that, and people that's in your household, within your relatives, within your immediate community, you're not doing something there, then when you're doing something over in another country and that's all you can do and that's what you're given, then you're defeating the purpose of actually really giving. You need to take care of your home first, and that includes the place where you live, the community you live in. But even those that even are poor in Israel are, is expected to give something. If a beggar comes up to a beggar, another beggar should be able to at least, to do something according to his ability.
Right. Okay, Terry, I'm going to get me a cough drop and bring us to a close.
Well, we'll start next week with our question and answers, and we'll take a break from the book here for a couple of weeks and do that. And
looking forward to it. All right, I'm going to make our descent, Terry.
We cover everything tonight.
I believe we covered everything. Yeah. So thank everybody for coming and being with us through the radio, Power Faith Radio. We thank you so much for spending that time with us. Those of you that are listening, watching, maybe you're watching this recording through one of our 2 Facebook pages, remember A Simple Walk. That video can be shared with all your social media platform. And please ask those questions. Give us a thumbs up. And we did have a couple of people, Terry, and I'm going to be honest. They came in. Were asking. They were actually on a soapbox. They weren't asking questions. And I'm going to tell you what I did. I deleted them. Because I'm not going to argue. I don't think we need to argue or debate the text. We're just presenting the text.
We shouldn't ask questions with an agenda. We're all learning. We're all students.
Yeah. So, but we thank you if you want to send those questions. If they're germane to the conversation of the video, we will discuss them. But if they're not, then we're not going to. But having said that, if you want to find us on YouTube, just go over to YouTube, type in Outreach Noah. We'll come up. Subscribe to that channel. Hit that notification bell. You'll be notified every time a new video goes up. Send us an email send it to outreachnoah@gmail.com. Go to our website, outreachnoah.com. Did I get it all in there, Terry?
I think you did.
And I held back the cough till the last minute. So, all right, everybody. We look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.
Get your questions to Scotty.